And I think that's why your Media Cubs initiative is so important. You're making the voices of young people heard, often when they're not heard by the national media and by politicians. So you should have been asked, I think, and you should be asked about what you would want to see at school. If you're going to have to go back, if they're not going to give you a choice, what is it that you want to see in the classroom and in the assembly, or in the canteen or whatever, to make you feel safer? And I would hope that good schools would speak to their students and ask them what they want to see to make them feel safe. So yeah, your voice hasn't been heard. You should have been asked, in my view.
Thank you, and we'll go to Sam next.
What ran through your thoughts when you were first notified about COVID-19?
I remember when I first heard that word, pandemic. Ooh, it's a scary word, isn't it? Obviously, it means a disease that is going to spread because it's a new disease and go around the world. And the reason I felt scared was I actually dealt with a different pandemic, probably before you were born. It wasn't that long ago. It was in 2009. And it was a flu called swine flu. And the thing about that, the reason why I remember that is I was the health secretary in the UK government at the time. So I was in charge, like Mr. Hancock is in charge now from a health point of view. I was in charge when swine flu happened. And you know what was different about swine flu to COVID? Swine flu particularly affected young people. So kids were most at risk. So it was quite scary, really, because I remember what that felt like to me at that time when I was health secretary. And I kind of sympathise in many ways with the government, because it's a really challenging thing. But, I think some things could have been done better, to be honest. And, nobody can get everything perfectly right about this. But, I remembered all the things that I did at the time, and I've tried to sort of give my advice to the government as best I could to try and help them through this. But I felt scared, if I'm honest with you, just because it's a thing that's a very challenging thing. But what I also knew was that Greater Manchester would be really strong together, and we have been. And it's brilliant the way everybody's looked after each other. So we see sometimes the best of people in the worst of times, and we've definitely seen that again, and that gives me hope and encouragement for the future.
Thank you, Andy. We're going to go to our resident bookworm now, Aisha, for her first question.
How will the system be sorted for libraries and library books?
Well, you really are a bookworm. Were you? So you've got some people calling for the pubs to reopen, but you want libraries to be open, rightly, I would say. And I think they can reopen, I think, from this morning, or they could open on Saturday. So I think that's so important, because not everybody can afford to buy books. Not everybody has access to the internet. And so, some people have maybe felt really lonely during this time. And the library sometimes is a place where they can kind of feel part of their community, isn't it? Because it's more than just a place where you go to get books. A library, isn't it? You can go and meet people, and you can go online. You can do all kinds of things in libraries these days. And I'm really passionate about them. I over my life done quite a lot of things connected to libraries. And when I was in the government, I stopped people closing libraries all over the country because I know, I saw your face there. But sadly, sometimes councils, when they run out of money, they kind of think, oh, what shall I close? And libraries sometimes are the easy thing for them to close. And once they're gone forever, aren't they? And I just think every community needs a good library at the heart of it. It's good news, isn't it, that they're open as of now. So I hope, are you heading there today? Have you been yet, or are you going to go soon?
I'm having plans to go there again.
And who's your favourite writer?
J.K. Rowling.
She's put some new things out, hasn't she, over the lockdown? Is it the Ichabod? Have you read that?
I'm starting to read it at home.
Great.
We're going to go back to Jack now, who's got a question from one of our other mini reporters.
On behalf of Tom, I would like to ask, football has started again, but why not cricket?
Yeah, why not? I mean, the truth is, every sport's a bit different in the way in which people interact. So golf could start really early because, you know, people tend to play it on their own. It's quite, you know, open green space. And, you know, they tend to use their own equipment, ball and clubs, rather than sharing the equipment. So tennis is a bit like that as well. But cricket's different because when you've got the ball, I don't know if you played cricket. Did you play cricket at all?
Sometimes, yeah.
Because you know what happens is, you know, when the ball gets passed around between the players, you know, when you bowl it and then it goes to the wicket keeper and then they throw it back through the. So let's say there was something on the ball, you would be passing it to all of the team. And I think also they were saying that because cricket is a longer day and you have tea where everyone sits down together, and so the risk of the virus spreading was greater with cricket than, let's say, with golf or tennis or even football. And, you know, obviously, as you say, we've seen the return of football, but football is a contact sport, and, you know, that could be risky as well. But I think one of the ex-England captains, Michael Vaughan, spoke up about it last week, and he was challenging the government, and I think they backed down, didn't they? They've done a U-turn now, so cricket can restart quite soon, I think. I think a lot of pressure from your friend, because obviously he's using his voice to speak up for cricket, and rightly so. And I think cricket can start again soon.
Okay, we're going to go back to Sam for a question from another mini reporter.
Lola, whose question came to us on Instagram, says, I'm going into year 6 and I'm meant to be doing my SATs exams. I'm worried that I might struggle after missing so much school in the year before the exams. What is going to happen with the test?
Well, now that is a good question. I don't know for certain, Sam. So I think the government is going to have to make some allowances, I think, for the year 5, soon to become year 6. You would hope, though, that obviously everyone has been impacted to an extent. So, you know, in some ways they might have to lower the overall mark just to make allowances for people. So I would imagine that something like that will be done. My daughter's in year 10 going into year 11, so she'll be doing her GCSEs next year, and I'm a little worried about her in the same way. And the truth of the matter is, some kids will have got more help at home than others, and I think there's an unfairness maybe there that some children might lose out now because they don't have the same facilities at home, or maybe they don't have access to a computer at home. So I think what we've got to do is get catch-up support, you know, so those who've missed out quite a lot, give them more help to catch up what they've missed out on. So that's something maybe that we need to see, as well as them making some allowances for those who are taking exams next year and taking SATs. Hopefully it won't have too much of an impact on her. So tell her she shouldn't worry so much.
Thank you. And we've got another question from another mini reporter by Aisha.
On behalf of Alice, I would like to ask, what will we need to have a vaccine when COVID-19 is over?
We will. Alice asks a good question. It won't be over until we get a vaccine. You can have a treatment, you know, a good treatment. So if people fall ill and then they have a medicine or pills that they can take, that's one way. But obviously the best thing is that they don't get it at all, and that's what a vaccine does. You know, I bet have you had the injections for certain things in your life? You know, when you get I'm trying to think, maybe it's at secondary school you have some of them, don't you? But you know what I mean, where you kind of have when you were much younger, you would have had something called the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Vaccines work because they stop people spreading disease between each other. And I mentioned to Sam before about swine flu. When I was in charge of the response to swine flu, we spent so much time trying to speed up the vaccine. And swine flu pandemic happened in summer of 2009, and by the winter of 2009 we had the vaccine. That's because flu already has a flu vaccine, and it didn't need a whole new vaccine. It just needed a little change to the vaccine to make it work. And when that came in, the whole thing just went like that. It was a massive problem, like a spike of people getting ill, and then the minute we had the vaccine, it was just back to normal. So yeah, the vaccine is crucial, and I would think that within a year we will have one, but I think it will be too too optimistic to say it might be here earlier than a year, but I think it's probably going to be maybe about a year, 9 months to a year. You know, let's hope it's quicker. But the vaccine is going to be crucial to get back to normal.
We're going to go back to Jack for his third question.
What happens if the country goes bankrupt?
People will lose their jobs. And obviously that means there'll be a lot of people losing their homes, which is, yeah, I know, but don't worry too much, because every country in the world is in a similar position. So countries around the world will come to agreements to stop, this happening. It's going to be a tough time, Jack. There's no point me saying otherwise. It's going to be hard because some people are going to lose their jobs. Some people maybe have already lost their jobs. But that's why people like me are asking the government to carry on supporting people. And I was on the radio this morning, on Radio 4 this morning, calling for the government to give us things like a young person's guarantee, a guarantee of a job for every young person, so they don't, lose hope and become a bit lost at this time. We were calling for money to help people retrain. So if some people are losing their jobs, maybe help them retrain in a more modern job, like in the digital industries or in green energy or green building. So we're going to be doing a lot. Don't you worry. We've got a lot of plans to help people through this challenging time, and the country won't go bankrupt. I mean, the country is having to pay a lot of money out at the moment, but it won't go bankrupt. Obviously, people are going out again now. They're shopping again. They're going to restaurants. Things are starting to get back to normal, and once that happens, more money will come back in and more taxes get paid, and so it's gonna be challenging, but it's gonna be all right.
Thank you. And we're going to go back to Sam.
Now that lockdown is coming to an end, do you believe our route was the most efficient way to handle the COVID-19 outbreak?
Sam. I said before, yeah, I'm being like a politician now. I'm like, not really answering the question. You know what they're like, politicians like me. I said before that I had some sympathy with the government, because it's obviously a really challenging thing to do, to deal with a situation like this. However, there is a however. I don't think they've got everything right. I think they have made mistakes. I think one of the worst mistakes they made was when one of the people who work in Downing Street broke the rules, and they didn't sort of deal with that situation properly. And the problem with that is it means the rest of the public will say, well, if they're not following the rules, why should we follow the rules? And I think that was a mistake. I think they haven't used people outside of government enough. So councils could have done more to support them, and they've tried to do it all themselves from London. And I don't think that was the right thing to do. They didn't prepare enough, so they didn't buy enough protective equipment to prepare for the pandemic. So when it landed, they didn't have enough stocks of masks and aprons and gowns. So we will see a lot of this kind of coming out once we've dealt with this crisis. I think there's going to be a bit of an inquiry into it all. Some of the things they have got right, the Chancellor, Jack asked me about people going bankrupt and jobs being lost. Well, the Chancellor is paying the wages of a lot of people through this time because they can't work, because their companies are not working. And that's been a really good thing that the government has done. But it's a bit of a mixed picture is what I would say. And I've been having a little bit of an argument with them in the last day, because they don't give all of the information that they've got on Greater Manchester to Greater Manchester. So they know about people who've just got COVID in the last week, but they still won't give the names of those people to us, so that we can kind of identify the little outbreaks in different communities. And I was having a bit of an argument with the health secretary about that yesterday, because I'm saying to him, you should give us at local level all of the information that we need so that we can stop the virus spreading in our communities. And you may have seen last week in the news, Leicester, which is a big city. I don't know if you know it or you've heard of it or even been there. Leicester has had to go back into what they call local lockdown, where, you know, everyone else is out and about, but Leicester, the pubs aren't open in Leicester, the restaurants aren't open, the libraries aren't open, in Leicester. So, you know, they're still in lockdown. Imagine what being like a kid like in Leicester is this morning. Not brilliant, eh? So I don't want a lockdown in Greater Manchester. And therefore, I'm saying to the government, give me all of the information that you've got on Greater Manchester, the new cases and the names of people who've got COVID, and then I'll stop an outbreak that leads to a lockdown. But they still aren't doing that. So I have some disagreements with them, to answer your question. They've done some things right, but they've also got some things wrong. And so it's a bit mixed overall. What would I give them out of 10? What would you give them out of 10 for how they've handled COVID? Is that a...
5.
I was going to say something like that, 4 or 5, I think. 5 maybe. I'll be fairer like you and give them 5.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, we saw on our Media Club's Twitter that you were the argument you were having, and we're fully supportive of that.
Thank you.
We're going back to Aisha. Question 3.
On behalf of Millie, I would like to ask, will we get to start year 7 and when are we meant to?
So this is people starting secondary school, isn't it? I think it will be September. So I think that now everyone is agreeing that we've got to get people back into school from September. And I think that's right. I do think that's right. So it won't be the same, as I was saying to Jack before. You know, it might be that the layout of schools is different. Maybe the start and end time of the day is different. So it won't be the same as normal. But I think year 7s will be back in school in September. So you can tell Millie to start getting her uniform ready and buy a pencil case and all the rest of it, and get ready for September.
It's always the exciting time, the new stationery. We've got another question from Jack.
What are you doing to support my teachers? They work really hard to make things safe and fun for us, but it must be difficult for them.
Definitely. My brother's a teacher. He's an assistant head teacher of a school in Warrington. So I know what it's like to be a teacher. And you know what? Sometimes the media give teachers a hard time, I think. Teacher bashing. It's very easy. They're often got blamed for all kinds of things, and it's not fair because they work really hard. And people have been saying, oh, teachers don't want the schools to open, you know, as though they were kind of teachers were trying to delay kids coming back to school. Well, I would say 2 things about that. Number 1, teachers are speaking up for the safety of children and students, which is right, because you can't rush things. And it's not just the kids in schools that are at risk. If someone's living with their grandparents and they pick it up from school and take COVID home, that's not a good thing, is it? So, but then number 2, schools have been open all the way through this. So teachers have been working because they've been in school looking after kids of key workers or kids who need to be in school. But also many of them have been doing teaching online, haven't they? So, you know, teachers have been working. So I love the fact that you're sticking up for teachers. I think that's a really good thing to do, because, yeah, I think they get a tough time, and I think more people need to speak up for them because they do a brilliant job.
Thank you. We've got 2 more questions. I'm just going to go straight back to Jack for the next one. He's got a bit of a personal question for you. We hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
Have you missed your friends?
Yeah, I have. So I've been working from home for 3 months now, and I have missed everybody. Absolutely, yeah. My mum and dad. I've barely seen my mum and dad for three months, and my brothers. So yeah, we all support Everton. So we'll all be having a big Zoom tonight because Everton are playing, and we'll all see each other over that. You look like you don't support Everton, Jack, from the way your face changed when I.
How do you support, Jack?
I support Liverpool.
Oh, can I finish this call now? No, it's you must be happy then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping that the season would never restart, because then, you know, we'd just have to cancel it and Liverpool would miss out. But sadly, that didn't happen. But no, so it's a bit tough, isn't it? When normally when you're watching football, you want to be with your family. So tonight we'll all be doing it via Zoom after the match. But yeah, looking forward to seeing my friends, and it's been a bit of a tough time, isn't it? But we'll get through it.
Thank you. And our final question goes to Aisha.
What can us kids do to help get through pandemic?
Say that again, Aisha. What can us kids do to help get through pandemic? Oh, I think you've been amazing, to be honest with you. I think, as I said before, young people have been the most affected actually by all of this. But the way you stay positive, I'm hearing lots of reports of what kids are doing around Greater Manchester to support people, and it's fantastic. Honestly, I'm so grateful to young people who, like teachers, sometimes can get a hard time in the media. But I hear so many reports of what they're doing, and some people giving their pocket money to help the homeless, because I do a big work on supporting homeless people. It's just fantastic, and I think I'd say carry on doing what you're doing. Stay positive. You keep up the reading, by the way, because I think that's really important. You're clearly doing a good job with that. And I think what you're doing with this Media Cups thing is brilliant as well, because you're providing a voice for young people through this crisis and speaking up for people, particularly people who, sometimes don't get heard, is so important. Now, Jack, you and I aren't, we're not Man United fans, are we? But, and say this to me, were you impressed with what Marcus Rashford did recently?
Yeah.
You've got to say that was good, wasn't it? Because, Marcus is not that old himself, he's only 22. But he did what you're doing. He gave a voice to kids who often don't get heard, and actually those who most need to be heard because they don't have enough money to eat. And he stood up for them, and he spoke up for them. And because of what he was saying, and it came from the heart, and because what he was saying was right, he made change happen. So what I would say to you sometimes might feel, you've said a couple of times today, oh, kids don't get heard, and why did nobody ask me? I think you can get heard, and you are getting heard from what you're doing, and take inspiration from Marcus Rashford, because he stepped forward, he spoke up for kids who often get ignored, and he made the government change things to support them over the summer. And I think that's a fantastic example for us all to take some inspiration from. And you've said things to me today that I'll now think about as Mayor of Greater Manchester, things that I need to maybe think more about. So thank you for all of your brilliant questions, and all of your friends who've submitted questions.
Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate it, and you're totally right. Marcus Rashford is a great role model, but thank you very much to yourself for being a role model to them as well, listening to them, because it's great that the Mayor of Manchester has been the person that's done that. I'm just going to hand you back to Grace now.
Hello.
I survived.
I can't thank you enough on behalf of the mini reporters and the kids that have got involved for some really honest answers, don't you think, mini reporters?
Yeah.
Honest answers and quite a few reassurances in there, I think, both for the grown-ups and our mini reporters. So thanks again for your time.
No worries, Grace. Can I say one last thing to the mini reporters? Is that okay? Because I wanted to say a massive thank you to you. The questions were brilliant, as Grace just said. But I also want you to take away from this the kind of the feeling that you could do maybe what I'm doing, or what Grace does, which is work in television. Because I remember when I was growing up, when I was your age, if someone had said to me at that age, one day you'll be Mayor of Greater Manchester, I never would have believed them. And if I can do it, you can do it. So what I would say to you is, if you want to be a reporter in television, why not? Why can't you do that? Of course you can do that. So you've already proved to me that you can do it. So what I'm trying to say to you is, aim quite high in your life, and really kind of set high ambitions, but do what you're doing today. Always speak up for other people. You've been asking questions on behalf of your friends. always be somebody who's there for other people. And I think that also means that you'll go far in life, and you will do well. So I've just been so impressed, and I could easily be looking at three presenters of the future there, no doubt about it. And thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Andy.